It was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, and mine. But instead of sitting among the smiling guests, watching my only son walk down the aisle, I was at home, uninvited, heartbroken, and left wondering where everything went wrong. You raise a child, pour your heart into their every need, and then, one day, you find out from a cousin's Facebook post that your own son got married, without you. No phone call, no explanation, no seat at the ceremony. Just silence. And let me tell you, that kind of silence is loud. I wasn't angry at first, just numb. Confused. I went through every memory in my mind, searching for the moment things began to fall apart. We were close once. He was my little boy, the one who used to fall asleep on my chest and beg me to stay a little longer at bedtime. But somewhere along the way, life got complicated. I always thought we'd have time to fix things. Turns out, I was wrong. The hardest part wasn't missing the wedding itself, it was knowing he didn't want me there. That pain cuts deeper than any words ever could. I kept asking myself why. Was it something I said? Something I didn't say? Did someone poison his thoughts against me? As those questions kept spinning in my mind, something inside me shifted. I knew I had to respond, not with bitterness, but with something unforgettable. Something that would speak louder than any argument or apology. So, I sent him a wedding gift. But not just any gift. It was thoughtful, deeply personal, and carried a message he couldn't ignore. It wasn't about money or grandeur. It was about truth. About love. About reminding him of who we used to be, and maybe, just maybe, who we could be again. I wanted it to be the kind of gift that doesn't get tucked away in a closet or lost in a pile of envelopes. I wanted it to change something. When the package arrived, I didn't expect an instant reaction. I had no idea what he'd say or do. But what happened next? I could never have imagined. That single gesture, born from heartbreak, set off a chain of events that none of us saw coming. It stirred up feelings that had been buried for years, reopened wounds, and brought secrets to light that had been quietly hidden in the shadows of our family. This story isn't just about being left out of a wedding. It's about family, forgiveness, and the silent battles we don't always talk about. It's about how one moment, one decision, can shift everything. And trust me, what happened after that gift arrived, changed more than just my relationship with my son. So, if you've ever felt left out, misunderstood, or like your love wasn't enough, stay with me. Because this story isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. ChatGPT said, I kept the gift small, but meaningful. It was something only he and I would truly understand. A framed note, in my handwriting, quoting something I used to tell him every night before bed, no matter what, I'll always be here. Alongside it, I included a memory box, filled with tiny things from his childhood. His first drawing. A little charm he gave me when he was 5. A pressed leaf from the park where we used to take long walks. I didn't write a letter explaining why I sent it. I didn't want to defend myself or beg for anything. I just wanted him to remember. To feel something. What people didn't know is how much history we had, good and bad. There were years we barely spoke, not because of hatred, but because of a growing wall of misunderstandings and pride. After his father and I divorced, everything changed. He was old enough to pick sides, and even though I tried to stay neutral, emotions got the best of us. I always thought time would heal things. But time, it turns out, doesn't fix what we leave broken. Still, deep down, I believed he'd come around eventually. So when the wedding came and went without a single word from him, I realized I had been living in a fantasy. People around me tried to comfort me, maybe he had a small wedding, or maybe it was last minute. But I knew better. I saw the pictures. I saw the guest list. I saw the smiles from people I barely even knew, and not one empty seat that could have been mine. What hurt the most wasn't even missing the ceremony. It was the thought that my son didn't want me there on the most important day of his life. That kind of exclusion makes you question everything. Had he erased me from his life completely? Had I become someone he was ashamed of? Or worse, Had someone else convinced him I was better left in the past? I couldn't sleep the night I mailed that package. I kept picturing him opening it. Would he scoff? Would his new wife toss it aside? Would he even recognize the small, quiet love packed into every piece? I had no idea how he'd react, but I knew I had to try. I couldn't let my silence answer his. Days passed. Then a week. Nothing. Not a call. Not a message. And just when I was ready to accept that maybe he'd just toss it and move on with his life, something changed. A text came through, but not from him. It was from someone I didn't expect. Someone who had been close to the situation all along. And what they said. It cracked open a part of the story I never saw coming. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about a wedding. There was more to it, layers I didn't know existed, choices that had been made without my knowledge, and a truth that had been carefully kept from me for years. The gift didn't just reopen our story. It exposed it. The message came from my son's childhood best friend, Evan. We hadn't spoken in years. He had practically grown up in our house, calling me Mom half the time, always raiding the fridge and tagging along on our family trips. Seeing his name light up my phone that night felt like seeing a ghost. I hesitated before opening it, my hands trembling slightly. The message was short. I saw the gift you sent. I think you should know the whole story. Can we talk? My heart started racing. What did he mean, the whole story? I thought I did know it. I thought the story was just about a broken relationship between a mother and her son. But something about that message felt heavy. Like there were parts of the puzzle I didn't even know were missing. Evan called me later that evening. His voice was careful, almost like he didn't want to be the one to deliver the blow, but knew he had to. He told me that my son, Michael, had been struggling for years with feelings he didn't know how to process. That after the divorce, someone had quietly planted ideas in his head, someone who wanted him to believe that I'd chosen myself over him. I knew immediately who he was talking about. Michael's father had always been charming in public, but behind closed doors, things were complicated. Our marriage didn't fall apart in one day, it happened slowly, painfully. And even though I tried to shield Michael from most of it, kids always pick up more than we think. I never spoke badly about his dad. I just assumed, in time, Michael would see things for himself. I didn't know his father had been rewriting the narrative all along. Evan said that growing up, Michael always felt torn between us. That he wanted to reach out to me so many times, but something always held him back, guilt, confusion, maybe fear. And when he got engaged, it all came to a head. His fiancée, Claire, didn't want drama at the wedding. She believed what Michael had told her, based on what he had been told all those years. To her, I was the villain in a story that had been retold too many times without my voice in it. Hearing all of this made my heart ache in a whole new way. It wasn't just rejection. It was miscommunication built on years of silence. Misunderstandings passed down like family heirlooms. And all the while, I had been waiting for an apology, thinking I deserved one, not realizing that my son had been living in a version of our story that didn't include the truth. But the part that hit hardest was what Evan said next. He told me that Michael hadn't been able to stop looking at the memory box since it arrived. That he'd taken it out more than once, just staring at the contents without saying a word. And that Claire had started asking questions. Uncomfortable ones. So now, the silence isn't so quiet anymore. It's filled with doubt, with shifting truths, with cracks forming in the story Michael thought he knew. But what he'll do with those cracks, whether he'll mend them or let them grow wider, I still don't know. And the real question is, if the truth finally does come out, will it be enough to bring us back together? Evan's phone call stayed with me long after we hung up. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying every word, every moment from Michael's childhood, every argument, every silence. The pieces started fitting together in a way they hadn't before, but instead of feeling relief, I felt a deeper kind of ache. One you feel when you realize the damage hasn't just been done, it's been growing quietly in the background for years. And now, it was all starting to unravel. A few days passed. Still no word from Michael. But I knew from Evan that something had shifted. And then, it happened. A knock on my door. It was late, too late for neighbors or deliveries. I almost didn't answer. But when I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Standing there, looking unsure of himself, was Michael's father. I hadn't seen him in nearly a decade. He looked older, thinner, but still carried that familiar air of control. The moment our eyes met, I knew this wasn't a friendly visit. "I heard you sent a gift," he said, not even offering a hello. "You couldn't leave it alone, could you?" His tone was cold, but under it, I caught a flicker of fear. That's when it clicked. He wasn't here out of concern, he was here because he felt the ground shifting beneath him. "I didn't send it for you," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It was for my son." He stepped inside without asking. "You're going to undo everything. After all these years, you want to stir it all up again?" The way he said it, like peace had been some kind of performance. Like he had spent all these years carefully constructing a version of events to suit him. I realized that if the truth came out, it wouldn't just affect me and Michael, it would threaten everything he had built. "I didn't undo anything," I said. "I just reminded him of what's real." He didn't argue. He just stood there for a moment, then turned to leave. But before he walked out, he paused and looked back. "He doesn't need this. He's happy now. Let it go." But how do you let go of your own child? Of years stolen by silence, by someone else's story? I couldn't. And maybe, finally, Michael couldn't either. That night, I knew things were about to come to a head. I didn't know how, or when, but something had been set in motion. Evan's call. The memory box. Claire's questions. And now this unexpected visit from the one person who had tried to bury the truth the deepest. And then, just as I was turning off the light, my phone lit up again. It was Michael. No words. Just a missed call. But that single missed call carried more weight than 100 conversations. Because now I knew, he was thinking about everything. And something inside him was shifting. The question was, what would happen when he finally decided to speak? I stared at the screen, heart pounding. One missed call. Just one. But it was enough to shake me to my core. My thumb hovered over the screen, debating whether to call him back. I didn't. Not yet. I told myself I'd wait, that maybe he needed time, that maybe he was on the verge of something big. But deep down, I was terrified that if I called, he wouldn't answer. Or worse, that he would, and say something I wasn't ready to hear. The next day passed in a fog. I kept checking my phone, expecting something, anything. By evening, my nerves were stretched thin. And then, just as the sun was slipping behind the trees, another message came in. But it wasn't from Michael. It was from Claire. She wrote, "Can we talk? There's something you need to know." That was the moment everything shifted. I called her immediately, not knowing what to expect. Her voice was soft, but firm. She told me she'd been digging. After seeing the memory box, she couldn't stop thinking about everything Michael had told her over the years. She said something didn't add up. The stories, the timelines, the emotion behind them. Claire wasn't trying to take sides. She just wanted the truth. And now, she had questions that Michael couldn't, or wouldn't, answer. Then she said something that stopped me cold. "He found a letter," she said quietly. "One you never sent. It was hidden in a box of his things, stuffed in the attic at his dad's house. Dated the year after the divorce." My breath caught. I knew the letter. I'd written it during one of the worst nights of my life. Michael had gone to live with his father for the summer, and I missed him so much I could barely sleep. I poured my heart out into those pages, every fear, every apology, every ounce of love I had left. But his father had said it would only confuse him. Told me it was better not to send it. That it would only make things harder. I believed him. I never knew he'd kept it. And I never knew Michael would one day find it buried among boxes he hadn't touched in years. Claire told me he hadn't said much since reading it. That he'd locked himself in the guest room for hours after. That she heard him crying. That he whispered my name. That's when it all became real. This wasn't just about one missed wedding. It was about years of silence built on a single lie. That letter, the one I thought never reached him, might have been the one thing that could have changed everything if it had. And now, after all this time, it had finally found him. But what would he do with it? Because just as the past was beginning to resurface, something new was rising with it: anger. Confusion. The realization that everything he believed about me might have been wrong. And sometimes, learning the truth isn't enough. Sometimes, it breaks you before it sets you free. 3 days passed after Claire's call. 3 long, aching days of silence. I didn't know what to expect anymore. I kept telling myself that maybe no news was good news, that maybe he was just processing. But there was a part of me, the mother in me, that knew something was coming. You can feel it, in your gut, in your bones, when a moment that could change everything is near. And then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. Michael was standing there. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, but also softer. He didn't say anything right away. He just stood there, holding the memory box in one hand and the letter in the other. And then, without a word, he stepped forward and hugged me. Tight. Like he hadn't realized how much he missed it until right then. I didn't cry. Not at first. I was too stunned. Too still. But as he held me, I felt years of guilt, misunderstanding, and anger melt into something quieter. Something more honest. I read it, he said finally, his voice cracking. The letter. I don't know why he never gave it to me. I pulled back just enough to look him in the eye. Because it would have told you the truth. He nodded slowly. I believed everything he said. I thought you didn't want me. Hearing those words hurt more than I imagined, but I didn't flinch. I just reached out and touched his face gently, like I used to when he was a boy. I never stopped wanting you. Not for a second. We talked for hours after that. About the past, the things we both misunderstood, the space that had grown between us. He told me about the wedding, how Claire had sensed something was wrong the whole time. That even as he said his vows, part of him felt incomplete. That when the gift arrived, it hit him like a wave he couldn't ignore. But then, just as I began to feel like we were finally starting over, he said something I didn't expect. Dad called me, he said. He told me you planned this. That you only sent the gift to make a scene. I sat back, shocked. You know that's not true. He nodded. I do now. But, there's something else. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a second letter. This one wasn't from me. It was from my own mother, his grandmother, written years ago. Apparently, after the divorce, she had tried to contact Michael too. Tried to keep a connection. But all her letters had been intercepted and never delivered. My breath caught. It wasn't just my voice that had been silenced all these years. It was hers too. And suddenly, I realized, this wasn't just a misunderstanding between a mother and son. This was a carefully built wall, one that had kept love out for generations. And now? Now it was finally crumbling. The living room felt still after everything was said. For the first time in years, there was no tension in the air, just quiet understanding. Michael sat beside me, still holding both letters, as if they were pieces of a life he never knew he'd lost. He looked around the room like he was seeing it for the first time, eyes lingering on the old pictures on the wall, the books he once flipped through as a kid, the familiar scent of home he had forgotten. I'm sorry, Mom, he said softly. For not asking questions. For just accepting what I was told. I didn't need an apology. Not really. What I needed was exactly what I had now, him here, beside me, finally willing to see the full picture. But I still nodded, taking his hand. We all believe what we're ready to believe. I'm just glad you're ready now. We spent the rest of the day talking about the in-between years. About how different things could have been if just one letter had made it to him. If just one conversation had happened sooner. But we didn't stay stuck in the past. We talked about the future, too. What rebuilding might look like, not rushed, not perfect, but real. Claire joined us later that evening. She looked unsure when she walked in, like she wasn't sure what she was stepping into. But when she saw Michael smile at me, saw the open memory box still on the table, she relaxed. She gave me a quiet hug and whispered, he needed this more than he ever realized. As the sun set, I realized something important. This story, as painful as it had been, wasn't just about being left out of a wedding. It was about all the little ways love gets lost over time, through silence, pride, and choices made with good intentions that end up hurting more than healing. And it was also about how love, when it's real, can still find its way back. Before they left that night, Michael looked at me and said, I want you to meet Claire's parents next weekend. You should have been at the wedding. You're going to be a part of everything from now on. It wasn't just a gesture. It was a promise. As they pulled away, I stood at the door for a while, holding that first letter, the one I thought had never mattered. Turns out, it had mattered more than I could have imagined. It had started something. It had cracked open a truth buried beneath years of silence. And it reminded me that even the smallest act of love, sent with an open heart, can change everything. Sometimes healing comes late. Sometimes it arrives after the big moments have passed. But when it finally does, it has a way of reaching back through time and softening even the sharpest edges. That gift I sent wasn't just a box. It was a bridge. And somehow, it brought my son home. 34.